we're going to go into is the Connecticut legal. So I'm going to get that open for us. And some of it we've already discussed, parts of it already. So we don't have to go too crazy with this one, but we do need to go over some of these aspects. How do I make it bigger?
Ooh. So in this,
Why am I not getting it? Sam, how do I make it go big?
Go to the top and go to animation or
And
to
oh,
the
the slideshow.
slideshow. I'm sorry. And then from beginning,
Where is that? I can't see it on my screen.
right under file.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
I was like, I can't remember how to make it bigger.
no, that's okay, because there's a reason as to why I don't do the slideshow. I would crash the system, just putting it out there. In regards to the I'm just moving my little box here. Putting my squares to the side.
Hollywood squares can cover up the words.
Yeah. So when there's a call that's made for what abuse, neglect, and a risk of abuse, there's a report that's made into Caroline. Caroline takes in the report with the information that's being reported over the phone. It is there's a decision as to whether or not there's enough information that warrants further, if it warrants an accept or a reject. Meaning there's there's insufficient information, it doesn't meet the criteria for abuse and neglect. So that particular call is going to be rejected. And normally speaking, whoever makes the report will get a notification of whether or not if it is rejected or accepted. In the event that the report that's being made warrants abuse or neglect, then that's when the report is accepted. At that point in time, when it meets the legal statutory definition of abuse or neglect, or in danger of abuse, and the alleged perpetrator must be entrusted with the care of a child. At that point, when it is accepted, there's an investigator that's assigned and will go that will reach out in order to have a conversation with the youth, as well as the foster parent, as well as any providers that the child has. Generally, the investigator has to make contact within 2 hours. It has to be the same day of when the report was accepted. They have to make contact. They have to respond in 24 hours. And so during this timeline, during the investigation, they have 45 business days to complete this investigation. After the completion of that 45-day mark, sometime sooner, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take the whole 45 days. It can be done sooner. That investigator is going to determine whether or not if it's unsubstantiated. And at that point in time, it kind of gets closed, or if it's substantiated. Oh, sorry. The other piece to this is that if it is unsubstantiated, it may be determined that there may be ongoing services. So there may be supports put into place for that particular family. If it is a situation where it is abuse or neglect and it is substantiated, that's where it will it's closed or transferred to ongoing service as well. But if there's imminent risk during that investigation, the child can be removed from an adult who has been entrusted with the care of the child. And cases can be opened and transferred to ongoing services or cases that can be closed.
Quick heads up,
Any
Michelle.
thoughts?
You keep freezing. Every now and again you freeze and then we don't hear anything. Just quick heads up. I don't know if everybody else sees that, but
Oh, is anyone else experiencing that? Because I haven't experienced that.
okay, so it might be my Wi-Fi.
It may be your signal. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Does anyone have any questions in regards to how the inception of a report and how it goes through the system, whether it be unsubstantiated and substantiated? No questions?
Okay, so these little circles, because this always gets funky and everyone always wonders about these things. So the child's born, a parent has custody. They make the decisions around and provide for the child's basic daily needs. They also have guardianship, authority to make major decisions affecting the child's welfare, including but not limited to major medical, psychiatric, or surgical treatment. And they also have parental rights, the right to access knowledge and input into the child's care. When DCF first gets involved, they have no legal standing with the child. So they're an empty little circle, right? Versus the child's parent circle that has all three layers. When safety issues call for a child's removal, things start to change. So you'll start to see emergency removal, 96-hour administrative hold, or a temporary custody order. So at that point, DCF will get temporary custody, and that's where you'll hear people saying OTC. When the court has found that the child has been abused or neglected, they can order commitment of the child. And that is where DCF now, the circle for guardianship, moves over to DCF. Now they have custody and guardianship of the young person, but the child's parent still has parental rights. If the parent cannot resume care of the child, the department can pursue termination of parental rights. And that's where legally they will petition the courts to then get that last layer of the circle, the parental rights, saying that the child's parent is no longer able to care for the young person. This gets tricky because sometimes the little circles can kind of move around, right? There's still parents that will still have parental rights while DCF has custody and guardianship. And we have to be sensitive to what that means and understanding that as foster parents, they're there living with you, but the parents still have rights. So things like medical decisions, medication decisions, what else, Michelle? I'm trying to think of what other things may come up that it is ultimately up to the parent to be able to sign off on those things, unless DCF has all the custody and the guardianship. Ooh. So you want to go ahead, Michelle? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
So when DCF has the custody, the guardianships, and the parental rights, generally speaking, the rights have been terminated of the biological family. DCF is now considered the parent. Although they're considered the parent, there's still some things that they don't they don't have the right to, meaning they can't change the child's name. You know, there are some things that they're not able to do. And this is where when a child that concurrent planning, right, when there's talk about adoption, when the child is up for adoption and that child is adopted, that's, can you go on to the next slide? Because I think it's in the next slide. Once the child is adopted, that adoptive parent receives all the parental rights, the guardianship, and the custody. And at that point in time, DCF is no longer involved. They have no legal role, no say in regards to the child. This is where, you know, with adoption, you know, they have the ability to inherit from their adoptive parent. The legal process,
These are all like the items Michelle was talking about prior when we were talking about permanency plans and goals. Really looking at, we have to do the parent and child visits unless and until the court decides otherwise. So if we're starting to see situations where visitation is not clinically appropriate, or there is any kind of abuse or suspicion of something inappropriate happening during those visits, we would let the courts know and DCF know about that. We have to show reasonable efforts to assist and support the parents in rehabilitation. So what are we doing to help provide that support to the parents so that they can get reunification and accomplish that goal? Specific steps that are outlined for the parents and for DCF. That is what the court gives them each time during those permanency hearings, to say, by the next hearing, we want X, Y, and Z done, and we report back on those items at the permanency hearings. We also concurrently have to explore possible kinship placements as identified, and that's really looking at that plan B. Who else are we looking at? Who else can care for this young person? And are there any other family members or kinship resources that can come forward? The court also can order evaluations as they deem necessary, whether it be for the parent or the young person as well. The hearings are held annually. That is the statute that is like the bare minimum is annually. But when kids are having in the beginning of these, when a child has been removed from the home, there'll be a couple more frequent hearings that take place because they're trying to understand whether or not the order will, an OTC order or commitment will take place, and whether or not a trial will have to take place. And those are all steps that the team and DCF will keep you posted on, so that you're understanding of where they are in the legal process at all times. And like Michelle had mentioned earlier, the child is assigned an attorney that must meet with them prior to the hearings. And we have to keep in mind that the child's attorney is exactly that, a child's attorney. They are speaking on the best interest for their client and what the client wants. And sometimes we know our kiddos, they might say something that we may not agree with what they're asking the attorneys for, but the attorneys still have an obligation to represent what their client, who is the child, wants to see happen in their life. So this is just outlining the information regarding the processes that take place. People who will be talking to the child, DCF worker, the child attorney, guardian ad litem, if appointed, like Michelle had highlighted earlier, who advocates for the child, the DCF worker, the attorneys, and you as the foster parent. And you'll also be able to share what you're advocating for too with your FFT team, and we will relay that information as well to the DCF workers. Sharing of information is with the court, the DCF team, and the providers. We always, especially for us, when we first meet with you guys too, we're big on making sure we get consent, and we have HIPAA releases, and we're okay with who we're talking to. And we'll keep you posted on those items as well. Michelle, anything else you want to add with that? Because I know when we're sharing information, we always want to be cognizant of who
The
and
releases,
what.
you'll hear a lot of that being referred to releases. Because without it, we can't communicate with school, we can't communicate with their
Outside service
pediatrician,
providers.
anything that pertains to the child, we won't be able to communicate it. So it's something that we get the releases signed. So
Mhm.
that way we can.
We're always big on that, and we're like, no, do we have the releases first?
Yeah.
And that's to protect you, the young person, and ourselves as well, and making sure that we're not just being, so free with sharing information that is private to this young person and to this family, so that we're sensitive to that. How are you supported throughout the court process? You'll be notified of court hearings. You have a right to have your voice heard, and you'll also have a FAFSA support worker, and I can never say it right, KFAF.
Yeah.
Michelle, do you want to speak a little bit more about that and what that looks like for our teams?
So KFAF, and I always forget what it stands for. It's Connecticut, oh my goodness, Adoptive Families and Foster and Adoptive Families. But they give, so they offer ongoing trainings that families are given information on in multiple what they call modules. But in the when there's talk about adoption and the foster family expresses they want to be able to adopt. The piece in regards to the adoption, they have attorneys that they consult with that will meet with foster families. So that way they get to know what their rights are and what their options are. One of the major things that gets discussed is what is the foster family's comfort level and their idea of whether or not keeping contact, having the youth maintain contact with their biological family. And that can look different for everyone. It could just be a simple sending a letter in the mail every 6 months just to give an update or just a picture. It could be that arrangements will be made that an in-person visit will occur every 3 months. It all depends. We had, for an example, we had a family that made arrangements where they had a PO box. And the child will send a letter, and but the biological family, if they responded, they would send that letter to the PO box, and then they would have the child view it. And they would keep that PO box for a certain amount of time. If the biological family didn't communicate using the PO box, the biological family that knew that PO box would not be accessible after a certain amount of time if they don't respond to it. And the reason being is that during the time that child was in the home, biological family were sporadic as to whether or not they would show up for the visit. They would make promises and those promises would fall through, and it would send the youth into a spiral. So they just set it up where, it was up to the biological family to, if they were going to follow up. And then if it didn't happen, this is what they were comfortable with. And then they would stop communication at that point in time. So it's very specific to what you feel comfortable with. If you're open to having open contact and having visitation occur, what is that going to look like? Pretty much, what is it going to look like and what's your comfort level? And so they'll speak more to the legal process and what is going to be, what's going to be put on there.
And the
And-
FASU worker also, but this group wouldn't have FASU, that's with DCF.
So FASU is more if your home was approved by DCF. But it would be myself. That you would reach out to me. Yeah,
But-
besides your FFT team.
Yeah, and it's just so that you have another direct person and contact of who you want to talk to about your foster home or what's going on in the home and any concerns you may have. Okay.
Right.
And
And so
as
they'll
you-
be surprised if I reach out and say, hey, what are your thoughts about adoption? Or what are your thoughts about this? And it's really to get an idea of where you're at.
Mhm.
And if a child is placed in your home for an X amount of time, you may start having questions like, hey, how, where's the case going? I just want to gather as much information as possible. And so you could reach out to me and we could work together in getting that information.
So at this time, let's do a break so that everyone could just, shake it out and get, bathroom break, get something to drink, get something to nibble on, whatever it could be. Michelle, you were saying like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Works? Okay, so 7:52, we'll be back on camera.
All right.
Thank you.
Are you?
There you go. And then I'll go back to the share to open that up.